of the study swadhyaya we have undertaken. The subject matter of this swadhyaya is psychic being. In the path of integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo and in the spiritual journey relating to Sanatana Dharma, irrespective of the Sampradaya, the search for the soul and the journey towards finding the soul has been almost central to the spiritual quest. This book, Emergence of the Psychic Being, is one of the important books that explains and outlines how, as spiritual seekers, we can try to find our soul, how we can arrive in touch with our soul, and how we are able to bring forward our soul. The word soul has many connotations, and over the ages it has developed numerous confusing descriptions and definitions. So Sri Aurobindo created a terminology not only for the soul but for several other aspects or several other terms in integral in the spiritual quest, so that there is a more granular definition of terms. We discussed it a little bit last time. So he uses the word psychic being, and we can broadly understand it as the soul. And as we go forward in our journey, we will see variations and descriptions that become more specific in what he refers to. So, welcome to this session on an introduction to psychic being. In this first chapter, what A.S.Dalal does is he gives the name of the chapter is Introduction, and he introduces the concept of psychic being. But what he also does is he summarizes the entire book. For those of you who have been able to take the time to read the chapter, you see that in the beginning of the chapter, he talks about the psychic spark and the psychic principle. The end of the chapter, he's talking about triple transformation in integral yoga. So he covers the entire gamut. He tries to give a couple of important themes from each chapter that follows in the rest of the book. So in a way, this talk is not only an introduction to psychic being, but it is also the summary of this entire journey of psychic being. So we'll deep dive into it. And as we go through this talk, if there are concepts that are unclear, just be patient. We will be revisiting these themes again and again. In this particular book, Dalalji talks about what is this psychic being as defined by Sri Aurobindo, where is the psychic being located and why is it hidden, what are the methods in which we can connect to the psychic being and also bring the psychic being forward, and gradually how do we permanently establish the contact with the psychic being. We discussed last time, in our journey, most of the time we live in our surface consciousness. And to reach the psychic being, which is considered the inmost being, we have two steps. One is moving from the surface being to the inner being, and from inner being to the psychic being. That is the journey. And once we arrive in a permanent contact with the psychic being. It is something like this. In our present state of consciousness, we identify with different parts of the being at different times. When we say I'm thinking, we are referring to the fact that we are identified with our thoughts and mind. When we say I'm angry, we are identifying with a certain emotion and what in Sri Aurobindo's terminology we call vital being, or more generally, the pranamaya purusha. So we identify with it. When we say I'm hungry, we are identifying with the physical part of our being. As we go through the journey and deepen ourselves, there is a state of consciousness where we identify similarly with the psychic being also. What we need to understand is that psychic being refers to a state of consciousness which I arrive at. It is not a subject-object differentiation. I am not going to look at my psychic being as a little flame that is burning. It is actually, there is a sense of identity we arrive at. It is me. It is a state of consciousness where I am. It is I who is the psychic being. It is not that I am looking at the psychic being. It is identification with our own true inner nature. It is not something different from us. This subject-object differentiation should be let go. Yes, there may be certain imagery in meditation. There may be a certain vision, certain seeing of a flame. All that may happen. But psychic being is nothing but a state of our own consciousness. This is something we need to understand and realize. Because otherwise the journey will get confusing. We may say that we may want to see the psychic being. No, it is not like that. Also, there is a vocabulary of psychic being. There will be many terms relating to this psychic that we will come across. Do not be too confused or do not be too concerned. We will understand them better as we go through this journey of maybe 10 classes or so. There is the psychic being, there is the psychic consciousness, there is the psychic contact, there is the psychic entity, there is the psychic spark, there is the psychic fire, there is the psychic influence, which we will see today itself. There is a psychic poise, there are the psychic tears, psychic bliss. In some cases, these are nouns which describe a certain form or a certain state. In some cases, these are adjectives also that describe a certain experience. Psychic bhakti, for example. Let these terms grow in your consciousness and in your familiarity. Do not be too worried. We will address every one of them in 5-6 classes. We would have touched most of them and you yourself will get a taste for it. In the Indian languages, the word used for psychic being is Chaitya Purusha. In Hindi, Chaitya Purusha. In Telugu, Chaitya Purushudu. That is the term that Sri Aurobindo has kind of approved of in our usage. Just be familiar. And as you go along, you will pick up the sense of what this word psychic stands for. Biologically, in the evolution on Earth, we all understand that there has been a certain physical set of changes from the tadpole to the human being. There has been an evolution. That is the evolutionary principle that Darwin taught us. In the spiritual evolution, Sri Aurobindo talks of a psychic principle. He first describes the principle, and then we get into the specific manifestation of the principle. A portion of the divine consciousness that descends to support evolution of the individual out of the ignorance into light. So this is the psychic principle. What is it? The divine consciousness comes down to help the individual evolve out of the ignorance into light. Psychic being is a projection of the divine consciousness into matter to awaken matter out of its inertia so that it takes the path back to the divine. This is the psychic principle that Sri Aurobindo is highlighting. So as universe went through its own chaotic evolution, as there was this big bang and gaseous matter was flung all around, and some of this gaseous matter coalesced into solidity, and a certain planet was formed, and somewhere water was there, and somewhere a unicellular organism went through mitosis and kind of multicellular organisms evolved. While all that was happening, somewhere a ray of consciousness chose to manifest and evolve. This principle is the psychic principle. And Mother has gone so far as to say that it exists only upon earth. It also does not exist in other planes of the being, of the world. So much so that in order to grow, even the devas have to be born as human beings. The very gods whom we pray to, if they wish to grow, they have to come back, incarnate upon earth, and grow in the psychic way. This is the importance given by Mother and Sri Aurobindo to psychic being and the psychic principle, and to earth as a field of manifestation. So how does this happen? When the divine consciousness comes down, the psychic at its origin is only a spark of the divine consciousness. And it is through successive lives that it builds up conscious individuality. It is a progress similar to that of a growing child. It needs all its rebirths, one after another, in order to build itself and become fully conscious. So let us make an effort to comprehend the principle that Sri Aurobindo is explaining here and the Mother is explaining here. A spark of the divine consciousness manifests in the ignorance. And life after life after life, this spark grows in its stature, gathers experiences, and it grows in its own being. From a spark, it becomes a flame. This imagery is not to be taken too literally. The imagery is given here for us to understand that there is this little drop, or maybe a tip of a drop of consciousness that came here, and that consciousness is evolving and growing. It grows as a certain self-awareness, as a certain self-consciousness. And it is possible that the biological evolution was in response to the need of the capacity of the physical being to hold greater levels of consciousness. A fish may not be able to hold a human consciousness. Its body is not physically ready. Somewhere along the way, the psychic principle and the need for the growth of consciousness on earth and the biological principle may have worked together in the evolution. So this is how the psychic principle native to earth is growing, and in us also, we may have started many lives ago as a small, little, minuscule consciousness that gradually is growing over a period, life after life after life. This is the principle of psychic being. As long as we understand that, we would have some inkling of what Sri Aurobindo means by this psychic being and its growth. We also hear that all of us are manifestations of the divine. Each of us is very unique. We have a swabhava. We have to find our swadharma in line with our swabhava. We represent a facet of God. We are a very unique facet of God. I will point out the contrary to this. Let's take the average distribution of humanity and go through the bell curve distribution in plus or minus 1 sigma, plus or minus 1 standard distribution. There is honestly not much difference between that 1 standard distribution of the bell curve. A little less, a little more. One can say if you're at the extreme of the bell curve at the lower level, you're an absolute idiot. And if you're an extreme of the bell curve on the other side, you're Nobel laureate material. But plus or minus 1 standard deviation, we are all the same. We are not much different. Accounting for factors which are sociological and educational, our belief systems and our evolution and our understanding of the world and our capacity to produce and our capacity to contribute, you can replace A with B and B with C. There is no difference amongst us. So honestly, it is very hard to say that each of us is unique. Look at the organizational pyramid. You take the 1/3 to 2/3 distribution. They're almost the same. You can replace one manager with another, they'll perform the same functionality. So what is this uniqueness? Where is this uniqueness? Is there really much uniqueness? This is where the truth of our being becomes relevant. In Mother's words, the psychic being is the real individuality of the true and divine individual in you. For your individuality means your special mode of expression, and your psychic being is a special aspect of the divine consciousness that has taken shape in you. Psychic being is a special aspect of the divine consciousness that has taken shape in you. This is our true individuality. We become unique as human beings only when we discover this unique divinity within us. Otherwise, we are really not that much different. When Mother used to see people, it is not a very flattering description she gave of us. She says, I see a mass of gray emotions and beings that come and go. She used to see us as these blobs which are not particularly different from each other. We are all going through the same human motions. Family, children, parents, parents-in-law, education, job, procreation, food and sleep, and the common 6-7 parameters of emotions. She used to see these gray blobs coming in and going out. There was nothing bright about any of us. that standard distribution plus or minus, she was seeing these automatons come and go. The real differentiation of us only comes when we understand and identify with the divinity within us. And that, my friends, is the true spiritual journey that lends meaning to our existence. That is the only thing that lends meaning to our existence. This is the identification with psychic being that is so important. And the mother has said, the psychic being is at the middle of your chest. Go deep within and you will find it there. So we have to first understand the importance of psychic being. It is the true I. Identification with the physical, most Indians are between 5'7" and 5'4", brown in color, have a certain set of height-weight characteristics, nothing unique. Most of us have the Shadripus, Kama, Krodha, Mada, Moha, Lobha, Matsarya, common. Mental capacities, given a certain average education, same thoughts repeated again and again. The real differentiator is that spark of the divine in us, and the only worthwhile living, the only worthwhile time we spend in our life is the time we spend in identifying with the psychic being, the true soul that is inside of us. Then, of course, comes the question, why is the psychic being so hidden? Where do I find it? You say, sir, it is in the middle of the heart, but I can't find it. Nobody can find it. Well, our psychological personality is predominantly made of a certain set of thoughts and emotions. And the psychic being is covered, our consciousness is covered with these thoughts and emotions. So the psychic being remains buried under these thoughts and emotions. Think of it like this. You go to a music concert. The singer is trying to sing in his nice but feeble voice, but the orchestra decided that they are going to play the heck out of these instruments. The band fellow is going on playing his band. The other musicians are playing their instruments loudly. You can barely hear the singer in this orchestra. This is the state of our psychic being today. There are various phrases Mother and Sri Aurobindo have used in a variety of places. Some places they refer to it as secret witness. Some places he is the secluded king in a screened chamber. So who is this orchestra that is dominating? The most dominating is the vital being. The mother says, man usually lives in his vital, and the body is its instrument, and the mind is its counselor and minister. So it is the vital being that is the lead conductor of our orchestra right now. What is this vital being? Pranamaya Purusha. What is this Pranamaya Purusha? Our desires, our emotions, and our strong feelings, and our need to possess, our need to enjoy, our need for comfort, our manipulation of circumstances and people around us for our personal benefit. I, me, and myself. Our whole existence is about fulfilling the needs of the I. And this existence makes it very, very difficult for the rest of the inner being to come forward. That is why when we discussed how from the outer being, the first thing we need to do is come to the inner being. Become aware that there is an inner physical, inner vital, and inner mental. Establish a certain calm and serenity as the basic layer of our existence before we can dive deeper. When we are standing on the shore and looking into the waters of a lake, if the water is so turbulent on the surface, how do we see the bed of the lake? First, we try to stabilize the waters of our emotions, of our thoughts. Try to find a silent mind. Try to understand. First of all, try to recognize it, a mind full of commotion. An average mind processes over 65 to 70,000 thoughts per day, which is equivalent to one thought for every 2 waking seconds. First, let us recognize the need for that. If we continuously happily live in the thoughts and emotions, and it is so difficult, even first of all, we have to become conscious. After we become conscious, we have to start working on us, on ourselves, to calm down the thoughts and emotions so that a silent being can be established. It is right now the vital that is dominating. The psychic being in all of us, whether we are conscious or not, tries to gather the essence of the experiences of the physical, vital, and mental, and it assimilates those experiences and then helps us evolve. If the vital being is turbulent, if the mental being is restless and full of thoughts, and we are unable to experience our own pure awareness as a state of being, then the progress is very, very slow. But if we are able to calm our vital being, if we are able to calm our mental, if we are able to help our body understand the purpose of being calm and quiet and seated without agitation, slowly then the psychic being will gather deeper experiences. To understand that in its original nature, in its pristine form, and in its own fiber and vibration, the psychic being remains untainted by the circus of the physical and vital and mental. It remains untainted, but the more active physical, vital, mental are, the more quiet and back it remains, further back it remains. It is not polluted because a murderer is there, or some antisocial element is there, or some greedy businessman is there, or some manipulating politician is there. Do they have psychic beings? They do. Does the psychic being get polluted? No. But does it come forward and guide? Impossible. It remains behind. There is a phrase that Mother uses, psychic sadness. The soul is kind of choking in all of this atmosphere, negative atmosphere. It remains screened. It is unable to spread forth its light. There is a psychic sadness, but in itself, it does not get polluted. The spiritual stuff is immaculate and luminous because it is perfectly luminous. It is immediately and intimately and directly aware of the truth of the being, the truth of the nature. It is deeply conscious of truth and good and beauty. It remains there. It waits. A similar description is given in the small book, The Mother, when Sri Aurobindo refers to the power of Mahalakshmi. She is the mother of beauty and harmony, and she wants to bring into life all wonderful things. But when we behave in a way that is unspiritual, when we behave in a way that is unbecoming of the grand glory of the soul, then veiling her face, she waits for this bitter and poisonous stuff to be rejected so that she can found anew her happy influence. She will wait. And my dear friends, if we are not conscious, that weight can be several lives, because all this karma has to be exhausted. Once we fill our swabhava with all these pollutants, then we have to scrub this out of our own swabhava. It takes time. What gets mixed, what gets mixed with and contaminated by the mental, vital, and physical defects is not the psychic being itself, but the action of the psychic being as it comes up from the depths of the being. The job of the psychic being is to guide us, and it keeps sending these rays of light. But those rays of light get mingled in this polluting atmosphere. We don't get that light. That is the figure of speech. What is it in practical behavior? In practical behavior, all of us know when we are doing something wrong, something that is not up to the height of our spiritual consciousness. There is a prodding, there is a pang, there is a momentary realization that what we are doing is not right. But what happens is often the justification of the mind and the emotion of the vital provides us enough logical basis to act in the wrong way. Act in a way that is not in line to the standard at which our soul has arrived. So those actions get distorted and perverted. It is not the psychic being that is affected. And the more we ignore the voice of the psychic being, the less we receive this guidance. But we will come to that at a suitable time. So let us be clear, there is a psychic being inside of us. It is the true individuality. It is the soul that we are here to kind of go closer to and realize. The physical, vital, and mental have degenerated and they are polluting the atmosphere, and we are not able to receive the light. But even then, the psychic exerts an unconscious influence on the outer circumstances of the life. It is the psychic that guides the outer organization. It is something that has brought us into this life, and it will continue to arrange the life in a certain way that helps our inner growth. We need to become sensitive. A certain sensitive feeling for all that is true and good and beautiful, fine and pure and noble, a response to it, a demand for it. These are the attributes of the psychic being. My dear friends, I will tell you, I know people who have been on the spiritual path for decades. Some of them in their 70s, 80s. They have not been able to understand the simple principle we are discussing here. I work with them. I struggle to work with them. Such people exist not only here, but in many spiritual paths. The power gets to them. The ego gets to them. The central principle that somewhere inside me there is a divine, and somewhere inside the other person there is a divine. We both need to resonate and work for the divine. This simple principle escapes them. Yet, they profess to be spiritual people who have given their entire life to spiritual path. Let us be very clear. Let us not waste our life. It is that, to me, these people are cautionary tales of the very existence I live. How does it matter what post I carry if I am not able to get closer to my soul in this life? Will that post save me in my next life? Will that post help me get closer to my soul? No. And these people throw such strong political battles and such confusion and such mess. And they are there in many spiritual organizations. And the closer you go to the center of the organization, the more these titans exist. They are titans. Behavior bordering on Asuric. And they have been there for decades serving that organization, mind you. What is happening here? It is a spiritual lesson. It is a very powerful spiritual lesson. The soul, because of its past good karmas, has brought them to the very source of light. But the vital and the mental are not yet purified. So they distort this opportunity to take the soul away farther by their behavior. Such people surround Swamijis, that such people are there in the mutts, in the ashrams, where there are power centers, these people are there. I'm not saying everyone is like that. I'm not saying every place is like that. But all I'm saying is, if you look, you will find plenty of them who are losing the opportunity of self-realization by taking the beautiful opportunity the soul is giving us, and they are not able to clean their vital and mental. This is not an accusation on anybody. This is just a cautionary tale. We are nobody. We are small fry. We just need to learn from all of the other, others whom we are seeing. And our soul, we need to cultivate the feeling of goodness, beauty, all these things. There are many other things we will discuss. Sometimes when we go to a temple or a saint or a Mahatma, suddenly tears start flowing from our eyes. Why? Because deep down a ray of light has touched our soul. We read something beautiful, we hear a beautiful lecture, tears come to our eyes. The soul has been touched. This is what in our terminology, in the integral yoga, we call them psychic tears. The psychic being also is a spiritual magnet. As the psychic being grows more and more, its action becomes stronger and stronger, and as a result of its influence, all events in life seem to conspire to help one advance on the path. All the circumstances are rearranged. For the psychic being can draw towards you things that will help you. Draw people, books, circumstances, all sorts of little coincidences which come to you as though brought by some benevolent will and give you an indication, a help, a support to take decisions and turn you in the right direction. This is the psychic being. It is the magnet inside of us that draws situations, people, circumstances to help you grow. My dear friends, as we do sadhana is a big word, tapasya is a big word, but as we bring in a little bit of spiritual discipline into our life, as we structure our life, as we grow in spiritual consciousness, one of the sure ways to know that you have grown in spiritual consciousness is look back 5-10 years. See the average level of consciousness of people around you 10 years ago, and look at the average level of consciousness of people that are around you now. If it has not changed, it is probably fair to say that we have not grown in our spiritual consciousness. I'm sorry, but sometimes we have to take hard understanding of what is going on. As we grow in consciousness, our own circle of people around us grow. It changes. Painfully, sometimes we let go old friends, the closeness to old family members, and a new spiritual family starts forming around us. The consciousness of people is higher. They're all seekers. This is a very good rule of thumb. People keep saying, have I grown in spiritual consciousness? How do I know I have grown in spiritual consciousness? This is a good benchmark. Reflect upon it when you get a chance. We will spend a bit of time now on contact with the psychic. This is one of the sections in this book. Conscious contact with the psychic usually develops only through sadhana, by learning to turn the consciousness within and learning to live within instead of being absorbed on the ordinary surface consciousness. Last time we did a wonderful meditation for about 15-20 minutes. The purpose of this meditation was to try and go into our inner being. Try and feel our inner being. Try and be in contact with our inner being throughout the day. What does that contact do? It keeps us centered. It keeps our consciousness calm. It keeps our emotions in check. And it keeps our thoughts in a controlled and a little bit of a placid level, not too restless. This is how the initial journey to the inner being begins. And for a conscious contact with psychic being, the mother says, one can only develop a conscious contact when there is a certain spiritual discipline, a certain sadhana that goes on. Sri Aurobindo says about various states of consciousness, there are 3 stages through which we go. There is a vision, there is an experience where that vision kind of stays for a longer period of time, and then there is realization. He explains this beautifully in Letters on Yoga. In the psychic being terminology, what is a vision? A contact with a psychic mental or a psychic vital for brief periods which come and go. A certain opening, a certain sense of joy, a sudden feeling of light, an experience that gives a very concrete joy. At the moment of identification, one truly feels very, very great joy. This is one of the characteristics of psychic being. For a brief moment, there is an explosion. There is a certain lightness of heart. The heaviness of life no longer weighs on us. There are many experiences one can have. But what happens is they come and then the life moves on in a normal fashion. And we keep remembering, oh, I had that experience at that time. This is the vision state where because of our sadhana, because of our inner growth, because of that temporary lifting of the veil of physical, vital, and mental, a ray of psychic shoots forward and we experience it. But what we need to do, we have to build our entire outer life, our behavior, our psychological profile, our 24 hours, in a way where such experience can happen again and again. And what happens when we do that? What happens when we keep doing this sadhana? A time comes when one can obtain the contact at will, simply to concentrate, to sit down and concentrate, to aspire in this way, and the contact is made instantly. So once that breakthrough happens, one can make a little effort and one gets linked with that experience. One can do this with many experiences. What I'm describing here is specific to the psychic. But for example, if you have a profound dream where the gurus come into the dream, we have a certain vibration. We wake up and we feel that presence. A good thing to do as a spiritual seeker is meditate and feel that vibration. Recall that dream. Try to manifest it. Try to remember it. Try to connect to that vibration a few times every day for the next few days. What one should not do is to rush out and, take the WhatsApp or a phone call and kind of tell all our friends how beautiful the dream was. First, absorb the dream. First, absorb the vibrations. So, the contact is established initially, that is the vision part, and then the experience comes. One can obtain the contact at will. As soon as the presence of the psychic consciousness is united with the aspiration, the intensity of the aspiration takes on a different character, as if it were filled with the very essence of the inexpressible joy. This is how it is. The experience allows you to relive that experience, relive that contact. You can experience it again and again. And then after some time, it may be months, it may be years, when one has attained a complete identification and union with the psychic, one is said to have discovered one's soul. The psychic being is said to be awakened, no longer veiled by the mental and vital and physical. This is the realization part. When one is completely identified, one is in a state of union. When the contact becomes constant due to a definitive identification and union with the being. So this is where you moved from an occasional experience which was sudden to a repeated experience where one is getting to those vibrations periodically, to a continuous, complete contact with that experience. These are the three stages: vision, experience, realization. In our own journey, there are certain states of consciousness right now for each of us which are in the vision stage. There are some things that are in the experience stage, but they have not become permanent. And there are some realizations and which we had, which are there as a part of the wealth we have accumulated in this life. The goal of these sessions and my prayer for all of us who are in this journey is that in this life, we should arrive at a permanent contact with the psychic being by the blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Let us make an effort. Let us make an endeavor. It is possible. Let us not think it is not possible. And when we arrive at the permanent contact with psychic being, there is a feeling of immortality. There is a feeling that I have always been there and I will be there forever. One feels in contact with the divine presence all the time and in all the things. There are experiences of contact with psychic being. There are several sadhaks who have shared their experiences. Someone says, it is like suddenly you are bordering on the fission of an atom and it is exploded. There is a new being. There is an intense and causeless joy, which the joy was self-existent. This was the phrase Amal Kiranji used. It was no external reason for that joy. It is a self-existent joy. One lady said she suddenly stumbled upon this experience during her delivery. Another person says he experienced it during an operation. Somebody says there is a reversal of consciousness. Earlier, Mother uses this phrase, by the way, and there's a whole description of it. The earlier identification with the physical, vital, and mental has changed into an identification with the psychic. And now you see physical, vital, and mental as the instruments. Several people have experienced this contact with the psychic, not in their deepest meditations, but actually while they were doing things. I'm trying to give you the practical aspect of all the theory so that it doesn't seem like, oh, these are these wonderful states of realization that only happen to people who are somewhere rare and in ashrams. No. These are experiences that people like you and I are having. We just need to be a little aware. Some of the qualities associated with psychic being: truth, goodness, happiness, beauty, bhakti, love, joy, joyful serenity, faith, a certain lightness, a certain light, a certain luminosity, harmony, peace, a certain calmness, a certain feeling of wideness, vastness, a sense of eternity, a certain sense of surrender, enthusiasm, warmth, a lot of gratitude, generosity, a certain equanimity. I mean, if I were to say in one word, sage-like existence, a happy sage-like existence is a psychic existence. We now move to the section Emergence of the Psychic. We have touched some of these themes before, both in this lecture and in the previous satsang. When the psychic emerges, there is a need to undergo a certain conversion. The mind and vital and body, which normally govern the human being, they become willing instruments, docile and submissive instruments of the psychic. The psychic being, when it begins to emerge or come forward, to take hold of the rest of the being, to influence it, to change it, so that all may become a true expression of the inner soul. So this is what it is about. The psychic being, follow this closely. This is almost the essence of the journey. It takes up a greater function as the guide and ruler of the nature. It is a guide and ruler of the nature, but it is a gentle guide, huh? It is not an authoritarian guide. A ruler, it is not an authoritarian ruler. It will only keep giving suggestions and gentle nudges, and they come as our own thoughts. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should not do this. They come as our thoughts, mind you. Don't confuse psychic as a subject-object equation where somebody else is telling you what to do. No, your own thoughts will tell you. Those promptings have to be registered, recognized. A guidance, a governance begins from within, which expresses every move, which exposes, every movement to the light of the truth. That is one of the central principles of psychic being. Repels what is false, obscure, opposed to the divine realizations. Every region of the being, every nook and corner, every movement, formation, direction, inclination of thought, will, emotion, sensation, desire, habit. My dear friends, the spiritual journey, in the true spiritual journey, the role of psychic is that of a torchlight. That torchlight gives you the capacity to look into your own nature in every nook and corner. All of us, without exception, we compromise certain things. We don't even want to look there. What we do is, we make एक समझौता बोलते हैं हिंदी में. We are agreeable to certain things being spiritual, but certain things we don't want to look at them. We make compromises. No, we need to do this so that we can actually be practical in life. Otherwise, people will think I'm a fool. Everybody tells an occasional white lie. Otherwise, it's not possible to live in the world. Oh, a little bit of weakness is okay. We can indulge in a little bit of weakness. Mother says, when we surrender, some things we surrender, but others we say, no, those we'll see later. We have to make sure that we put this torchlight in the right place. It exposes every movement to the truth. We have to consult our conscious. Manasa, vacha, karma is everything in tune. So this is the process of emergence of the psychic. It is by the emergence of the psychic that we begin to prepare the upbuilding of the divinity in the earthly nature. This is the important phase of our sadhana and journey. Taking up our physical movements of rigidity, lack of plasticity, repetitiveness, certain things we don't want to do, taking up our vital, our desires, exposing them to the light, to uproot desire by its bleeding roots, says Sri Aurobindo in Savitri graphically. What are the compromises that we are making? Are we hiding something from our gurus? All this we have to clean. It's not easy. It's a long journey. Some of these are our patrimony. They have come from our own forefathers. They are there in our genes. Some of them have come from our samskaras in the past life. Oh, it's not an easy journey. All of these we have to gradually learn to identify, understand. Sometimes I will tell you graphically how difficult it is. It is like you have a forceps in your hand and you have taken a small, creepy worm of your nature that is there in the cruni and you have lifted it up with a forceps. It is struggling in the light. It doesn't want the light. What is that? That is my own desire. That is my own preference. It doesn't like the light. And once you put a stark light on it, it disappears. It has to be brought out. Mother, I offer this to you. Mother, I offer this fear to you. Mother, I offer this depression to you. Mother, I offer this ego to you. Mother, I offer this arrogance to you. Mother, I offer this hiding that I am doing to you. Mother, I offer this circumstance that is forcing me to lie to you. Everything has to be dug out. One by one, one by one. This is the major journey of our life. You will see as we go forward in the book, somewhere Mother says it can take up to 30 years of psychic evolution. Somewhere else she says, but if you put your entire force of your vital and mental and your entire nature, if you really want to do it, within 6 months you can do it. How much are we using our will? How much are we using our vital energy for this journey? This is what we need to understand in the emergence of psychic. Then the last portion of this chapter and the last section of this book refers to psychic transformation. Sri Aurobindo uses this word transformation. This transformation is serious business, my friends. The whole objective of integral yoga is transformation of consciousness. That is the whole object of integral yoga. And wherever you go, in the Sri Aurobindorian vocabulary, this is a very powerful term, transformation. So let us clarify, what does Sri Aurobindo mean by transformation? How is it any different? Because all spiritual sadhana is transformation. Now, in the traditional literature, what is said is that our nature is composed of sattva, rajas, and tamoguna. The whole journey of spirituality is to move whatever is the tamoguna elements in us to sattva guna. Whatever is there in the rajoguna elements to sattva guna. Use that. Use the entire life to transform the nature so that it becomes more sattvic. This also is transformation. But Sri Aurobindo clarifies, by transformation, I do not mean taking the nature as it exists and trying to raise it in its gunas. By transformation, Sri Aurobindo means that the divine consciousness has to manifest fully from above or from within its light should irradiate the nature. And this very substance should embody divinity. It should embody divine light. This is the transformation Sri Aurobindo is talking about. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Not in a figurative sort of way, in a literal sort of way. When Sri Aurobindo left his body, golden light was pouring out of his body, every pore. Why? Because in his supramental transformation, he brought down the supramental consciousness into the very cells of his body. And when he left, that light emerged out of his body. So the psychic light, as a part of psychic transformation, should penetrate the physical, vital, and mental. That is the psychic transformation Sri Aurobindo is talking about. The upbuilding of divinity in the earthly nature as a result of the action of the psychic and the higher consciousness is what is meant by transformation. The object of transformation, the object is transformation, and the transformation can only be done by a force infinitely greater than your own. It can only be done by being truly like a child in the hands of the Divine Mother. This journey of bringing down divine consciousness or unveiling divinity from the depths of our being cannot be done by our effort alone. We should do our sadhana. We should do our personal effort. Of course, we should do that. But somewhere we have to invoke the grace of the gurus and be a truly child, be truly like a child in the hands of the Divine Mother. This is the surrender principle in integral yoga. And in this chapter, towards the end, one finds a most beautiful summarization of the goal of integral yoga by A.S.Dalal ji. He talks about triple transformation and he gives wonderful, authentic definitions of each of these triple transformation. I have referred to these definitions again and again in a variety of contexts. If you have the book, please mark this passage which talks about triple transformation towards the end of this book. Psychic transformation, spiritual transformation, and supramental transformation. He defines, Dalalji defines authentically these three. And this is the step-by-step process of the highest order in integral yoga. And they follow in this order. You cannot reverse the order or change the order. There are some places, some themes where you can interchange one versus the other. But this is a place where you cannot interchange in integral yoga. The psychic transformation consists in bringing in the right vision into the mind, the right impulse and feeling into the vital, the right movement and habit into the physical, all turned towards the divine. The mind, the right vision, the right knowledge, the placidity, the calmness, the serenity, the opening to the higher light, all of that has to be brought into the mind. In the vital, in the pranamaya purusha, the right impulse, the right feeling, the right emotions, the right energy, and into the physical movements, the right habits, the right movements. Sri Aurobindo says that you should treat your body as a tabernacle of the divine, as a temple of the divine, and you should install there the living presence. The body has to be treated with respect, with dignity, with purity. All habits have to be cleansed. This is the first principle. The psychic principle has to be established. The psychic transformation has to begin. Then comes the spiritual transformation. And this spiritual transformation can only happen when at least there has been some element of psychic transformation. By spiritual transformation is meant the descent of the higher peace, force, light, knowledge, purity, ananda, etc., which belong to any of the higher planes. Descent of peace, force, light, knowledge, purity, ananda. Just as in our body, we know that where do we feel the emotions? Normally in the trunk of the body. This is the region of the pranamaya purusha. Between the lower back, the thigh region, to the neck. This is the vital region in the body, and our emotions and most of all the energy related things happen here. The vital region. From the neck to the top of the head, slightly above the physical top of the head, is the mental region. We know that. Thoughts occur here. Sri Aurobindo points out that we have a spiritual part in us that exists in this region just above the head. There is a spiritual region of our own being. It doesn't belong to somebody else. This is the region of our being which has spiritual capacities. There are natural states of peace, force, light, purity, joy, ananda, love. These are the natural states that exist in all of us just above the head. But they don't come down, nor do we open to them, because we are lost living in the mind and the vital. When the mind and vital are first calmed down, and when they are purified, the higher ranges of spiritual consciousness that exists right above us, they descend, they come down into us. They take hold of our being. This is the spiritual transformation. And finally, I will not dwell much upon the supramental transformation. For many of us, it is a long way yet, but we should know what it is. Supramental transformation is a putting on of spiritual consciousness, dynamic as well as static, in every part of the being, down to the subconscient. Some of the ultimate results of the supramental transformation include release from the subconscient ignorance and from disease, duration of life at will, and a change in the functionings of the body. Supramental consciousness is very profound. In a way, at psychic transformation, one can almost arrive close to, if not realize, our own soul and our own self. At spiritual consciousness, we can arrive at the realization of the Vedantic truth of Aham Brahmasmi, the universal Brahmanda. We identify with it. At the spiritual transformation, we transcend time and space, and we exist as a being of Brahman in eternity that no longer is bound by the physicality or by this being. It transcends this very existence. So these are the three transformations that Sri Aurobindo talks about. So this brings us to the end of the chapter. It is almost a a quick summary of the entire journey, we can now turn on our video cameras. I will make a few comments and then we can try to take up any questions and answers. We will not be doing a meditation, but I will be talking about a small exercise I'm going to give you for practice in the coming weeks. You can try to practice the meditation regularly and also do this exercise of physical, particularly vital and mental regions. We are opening the platform for any discussions, for any sharing. Please, you can unmute yourself, or Kameshwari can unmute you, whatever is possible. We are now open. The floor is open.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session. So if anyone has any questions, please, you can ask.
Well, in Skype, there is a way to raise your hand, or you can even type a comment in the chat. So my question to all of us here is, how many of you have been able to meditate at least twice a week? Any of us over the last month or so? Okay. We can see one person who has tried to meditate at least twice a week. We didn't set a very high bar. No, we didn't say every day. We just said twice a week. At least one person has tried to meditate. There is a question that has come. Anilji has said he has also meditated twice a week. Wonderful, Anilji. A question has come from Kalpana ji about Meera ji also says, good. I'm glad that we have a few of us who have been trying to meditate.
A couple of members have said they've done every day also.
Oh wow, wonderful. In fact, Kameswari has done us a big favor because she's actually given us the meditation talk also separately, the 20 minutes. So that makes it easy for all of us. I would encourage the participants. Wonderful, Sri Lakshmi ji. Please continue. If you haven't been able to do so, try to spare 20 minutes. It's not a very long duration. It will help us in this journey. It will help us in this journey of trying to go deeper inside of us. My hope for all of us is that by the end of this class, in 3 months or so, all of us would be actually a little deeper in our consciousness. There is a question that we had. What is the difference between the inner being and the psychic being? I will briefly touch upon it, and then I will also point you to the video of the first session where I have deep dived into it, but it will be also a good opportunity for us to kind of summarize what is this inner being. So we understand the surface consciousness. We have thoughts and emotions and our body. This is the normal outer consciousness in which all of us live. The psychic being, on the other hand, is a spark of the divine inside of us. It is a pristine, pure being that has come down into this particular manifestation, this particular birth. It is pure divinity in itself. There is a big gap between this outer nature, which is very, very restless and is governed only by emotions and thoughts, and this pure, pristine divinity. When we make this journey from this outer surface consciousness, which we are right now, to directly the spark, it cannot be done as one jump. We need to understand there is a long journey. How do we make that journey? The first part is turn ourselves inward facing a little bit. So we realize that the outer personality is not our complete personality. Our outer personality is a part of us in which we are identified right now. Slowly, we go inside, we observe our thoughts. We realize that normally our being is caught in a certain set of patterns at the mind, but we can move the mind to a place where it can be a little quiet and silent, where it can dwell in tranquility, where it can dwell in peace. This is our own natural capacity. It doesn't come from outside. We have that capacity in us. We just have to dwell in that state of consciousness. That is our inner mental. The outer mental is lost in thoughts, lost in restlessness, lost in reactions. The inner mental can stay at a state of peace and calm and tranquility, and it can observe. The vital is caught in this action and reaction mode, like and dislike mode. It is enjoying or it is suffering. It is constantly moving between opposite poles. This is our emotional nature. But the emotional nature also has the capacity to be wide. It has the capacity to be strong. It has the capacity to be generous. It has the capacity to be beautiful in artistic expression. All of these are our capacities in the vital being. So we shift from this restlessness and reactions and duality and all of this to a state where largely we are wide and strong and stable, not unstable. So this is how we move from the outer existence to the inner existence. Once we stabilize in our inner existence, then we have to go deeper and deeper inside when we will discover the divine spark inside of us. We cannot receive the rays of the divine light that are coming right now from inside because we are not looking for it inside and we are too busy in the outer clamor. So this, Kalpanaji, is the difference between the outer being, the inner being, and the psychic being. It's a recap of our journey. Any other questions and comments?
I have a small question. I don't know if so the location of psychic being, you said mother has said, is at the heart region. Usually when we meditate, and I mean in certain meditation techniques, we meditate between the eyebrows, the Ajna chakra, or like during meditation, how can we experience this psychic being or at the location of the heart chakra? Or is there
Good question. Good question.
related? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there are many methods of meditation. One of the examples I use when it comes to meditation is the word meditation is like the word physical exercise. It's a generic term. But under physical exercise, we know there are very many different ways of working out physical exercise. It can be yoga, it can be cardio, it can be building up biceps and triceps. It can be several. It can be walking. It can be jogging. It can be so many different things. Meditation is a general term that essentially captures one broad pattern of going inward by withdrawing our senses into ourselves. This is one step which is probably common to all meditation techniques, though there are certain advanced techniques where we say we can meditate even with our eyes open. We'll leave that out for a moment. Now, once we turn inward, there are several places and several ways of meditating. The common places where individuals try to concentrate while meditating is 1, at the center of the eyebrows, 2, above the head, 3, in the heart. These are 3 places that one can meditate. In the traditional system of chakras, these chakras are considered the most prominent chakras. The Anahata, which is the heart, the Agnya, which is the center of the eyebrows, the Sahasrara, which is to exist somewhere here, a couple of inches above the head. So, as we go through this course, we will see Mother giving us guidance on how to meditate at the heart center to go deeper and find the psychic being. So, we will come to that in one of the classes where she will give us the method of how to go inside. Right now, as you are doing the inner being meditation, try to observe all the regions. We are going through the entire being, no? We are going almost from the head to toe and toe to head. At that time, you can place a little more awareness in the heart region. Spend a little more time there. Similarly, above the head also. Since you're already doing here, the consciousness must be quite aware of what is happening. So one must also be conscious about it. I'm not saying this with reference to Kameswari, but with others. Many times people sit for meditation, and some of them have been doing this for months or years, where they sit in meditation and the mind often wanders in many places. So you bring it back again it wanders. You bring it back again it wanders. We spend the time in this region, but in the wrong way. So we need to be conscious of it and try to become aware. Are we meditating or are we wandering? Meditation is not wandering. Particularly in our path of integral yoga, many people meditate with the mother's music. And some people turn on the music and let the mind wander. And this goes on sometimes for many years. So that is not meditating on mother's music. That is wandering while mother's music is going on. One has to be a bit cautious about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, please go ahead.
I think that's about it for today.
That's about it. Shall we close the session?
Excuse me, sir. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sir, I just want to know how to keep oneself consciously, like every moment conscious. Because since I try to do meditation many other ways, as I'm a housewife, office work also I have, and many more responsibility. So while doing, even in my work, I try to find peace within myself. I try to keep remember mother all time. There are many small things I keep on doing. I'm already in this path since very long, since my young age. But still, if you tell me that sit and do, that's become too difficult for me. Even in playground, when I sit there for the meditation, when mother musics are there, I try to keep that, but that consciousness takes you away from place. I try to sit down again. I try to do many things because I know, but still, or sometimes I'm always better. If I'm in Pondi, I cannot, and if I'm here, I feel, oh, I'm doing better. I don't know, things are going. I pray, mother, whatever you want to do it from my side, because I'm your child. But still I'm wondering, sir, what to do, like, really struggling what to do. Can you guide us?
Sure. So, there are 2-3 topics you have touched here. First topic is about being more conscious during the day by following a series of small practices. This is wonderful. Continue to do so. Be aware, be conscious, call the mother wherever possible, whenever possible. Try to feel the presence and continue with your day. This is a very good set of practices that you have touched upon, and these are the practices many of us try to follow. We try to follow these techniques in offices nowadays. I mean, some offices have it, some don't. But we can find a conference room, spend 5 minutes there quietly, just withdraw into oneself, focus on the breathing, come back again. These kind of small practices one can do. If you're traveling in the middle of the day, you're a business person, play mother's music. Countless times I've used the audio systems as help in aid in my travels because I used to travel extensively. These are one aspect. So building in small spiritual techniques. Using deep breathing as a technique. Sometimes I just press my eyes gently for a few moments before I concentrate. Gently press the eyes, it brings the awareness back into the body. Take a deep breath, just remain there for a few minutes. Again, move on with life. These are some simple practices. Breath is, of course, a very important one. Now, both Bhuvanaji and you have talked about the wandering of the mind and things like that, getting into silence. Now, these things, there are two other, one is remembrance practices, which you said, but there are two other factors that influence what happens in meditation. One factor is, do we have a habit of meditating for a reasonably long period of time? While we do the practices, the basis of the practices comes from this base of prolonged meditation of at least 30 to 40 minutes in a day. That becomes the basis. If one is able to do that, preferably at least 4 or 5 times in a week. One can't say every day. We all know the life that we are leading. We are all, juggling so many priorities and so many things. But that needs to be there. I am a proponent of meditation on a regular basis because that is actually the digging work we are doing into the physical, vital and mental. Physical, we are teaching it that it is possible to sit still. Most of our bodies have lost the habit of sitting still. Second, stilling the emotions, stilling the vital is a very important practice. It is actually this meditation and stilling the vital that will help us in another very important practice of sadhana, which is equanimity. Otherwise, we all live in a world of reactions. I get angry, sir. I have been trying to control anger for 10 years. It has not worked. Well, have we tried to do the opposite, which is still the whole being? Give it wideness of expansion, of calmness and stability. Even if we can do this 3-4 times in a week, it provides us a certain stilling, and that stilling then spills over into our day-to-day work and life. People will notice it. This is second. There is another part that I said which also influences us, which is the rest of the day, how we are spending. If we read Mother's guidance, while on one side people are surprised that there is so much emphasis given on work by the mother. She says you have to work at least 6 hours a day. You have to work at least 6 hours a day. Everywhere she says you have to work. But she also says, don't exhaust yourself in the work. Don't exhaust yourself to the point where all your energies are drained, and by the time you lie down on your bed, before you switch off the light, you are switching off your body. So many of us are leading that kind of a life today. Mother did not encourage squeezing our whole being the way we squeeze a cloth, wet cloth. No. And what is coming into our consciousness during the day and what is going out of our consciousness during the day? Are we having healthy interactions, or is it so how we structure the rest of the 12-16 hours is one aspect. How we are meditating at least for half an hour to 40 minutes quietly every day, that is another aspect. And then the practices that you suggested, Subalaji, all the three have to go together. And when we do, one last thing I will mention and I will stop. What Bhuvanaji said, which is in my meditation, I get so many questions and answers, but I'm not getting silence. There will be a place where you will get questions and answers, but as you bring regularity into your meditation, you will get silence. You just have to be patient and you have to keep working on it. A time will come, and there are many methods of getting silence also. We can take that offline and we can connect. So these
And
three things. Yeah.
Sir, one more request. Sir, our session is going very beautifully. Even after the session, when you sending the recordings, even for meditation also, when sir kindly keep some time for meditation in every class. It's really very, very important. The moment, how much this you what you're giving, even simultaneously meditation is, and it makes a difference. When last time I have attended the class, I have attended your meditation session, and then you have sent it us the recording also. That also I was doing, but I had a good impact when I was with you, connected to that the same day, first day. So maybe this is my mind and my psychology, but I request, if possible, you are giving us very good knowledge and very good things, but practically also we need this for meditation.
We will
And
definitely
exercise.
try. We will definitely try. I've seen Meeraji's comment also. I'm seeing your inputs also. We will definitely try.
I want to add here that it is true that when we do it in your presence, and also when we are doing it collectively at the same time,
Collective invocation, yes.
that also makes a lot of difference. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so shall we close the session? I think more
Yes,
questions are there.
yes. Let us close the session now. Maybe we can all do Om chanting collectively 3 times.
Yes. Oh. Thanks a lot, Srinivas Garu. So
Thank
for
you.
everyone,
Thank you.
you can